You think your taxes pay for roads and schools? Wrong. Most of your tax dollars go straight to billionaires' bank accounts as interest payments. Not metaphorically, literally. Your government borrows money from the wealthy and you work every day to pay them back, with interest. In 2024, interest payments hit 3.3% of GDP across OECD countries.
China sold a record amount of stocks, $5.1 billion.
The bond market, and particularly US Treasuries, which were seen as a haven for so long, are no longer as safe.
Government bonds sold off dramatically.
There's a few countries over the last 5 years or so that have sold 100-year bonds.
The money moving around in the investments, this is stocks, bonds, corporate governments, derivatives, credit, you name it. You are going to see a crack in the bond market.
That means more money goes to paying rich creditors than to national defense. Your government spends more on interest than protecting you, more than educating your children, more than fixing infrastructure. This is the interest payment scam, and today you're going to see the receipt. Every dollar, every billionaire, every lie they told you about where your taxes actually go. Let's start with the United States. In 2024, the federal government paid over $1 trillion in interest on the national debt. $1 trillion. That's larger than the defense budget, larger than Medicare, larger than anything except Social Security. Where does that $1 trillion come from? Your taxes. Every paycheck, money gets withheld for federal income tax. You think it's funding government services, but the largest single expense is interest payments to bondholders. Here's the breakdown. The average American household pays roughly $15,000 in federal income taxes annually. With $1 trillion in interest payments and about 130 million households, that means approximately $7,700 of your annual taxes goes directly to interest. Not roads, not schools, not healthcare, interest. Nearly half your federal tax bill is a direct wealth transfer to whoever owns government bonds. And who owns government bonds? The wealthy. Always the wealthy. Let's name names. Who exactly is collecting this $1 trillion annual payment funded by your taxes? BlackRock, the world's largest asset manager, holds hundreds of billions in treasury bonds. When the government pays interest, BlackRock collects. They manage money for wealthy clients, pension funds, and sovereign wealth funds. The interest payments you fund become their returns. Vanguard, State Street, Fidelity, the same story. They hold massive positions in government bonds. Your tax dollars flow through the government and into their accounts. They collect fees on managing those bonds, and their wealthy clients collect interest. But it's not just asset managers. Individual billionaires own government bonds directly. Foreign governments own $8 trillion in US debt. China and Japan hold over $2 trillion combined. Your tax dollars are being sent overseas to fund other governments. And here's the truly insane part. Some of the wealthiest Americans own so many government bonds that they're essentially being paid by taxpayers while also paying taxes themselves. They pay taxes on their income, then collect even more from interest payments funded by everyone else's taxes. It's a closed loop that only benefits them. This isn't just an American problem. In 2024, interest to GDP ratios increased in 2/3 of OECD countries. The wealthy world is spending more on interest than ever before. Italy spends over 4% of GDP on interest payments. Japan spends nearly 2%. France, Spain, Portugal, all spending massive portions of their budgets on interest. And all of it flows to bondholders. In the UK, interest payments now exceed $100 billion annually. That's more than the education budget. British taxpayers work to fund interest payments to wealthy investors while schools crumble and teachers strike for better pay. The pattern repeats across Europe. Greece, despite its austerity programs and suffering, still pays billions in interest annually. To German banks, to French financial institutions, to wealthy bondholders across Europe who rescued Greece by lending money at interest. The Greek people suffered, their economy collapsed, but the bondholders, they got paid. First. Always first. Here's the statistic that should enrage you. Interest payments now exceed defense spending in most developed countries. The United States spends $800 billion on defense. It spends over $1 trillion on interest. Think about that. The government claims it can't afford universal healthcare, can't afford free college, can't afford infrastructure repairs, but it has $200 billion more for interest payments than for the entire military. Your government prioritizes paying rich creditors over literally everything else. National security? Secondary. Education? Negotiable. Healthcare? We'll get to it. But interest payments to bondholders? Non-negotiable. Sacred. Must be paid. And this is by design. When governments issue bonds, they promise bondholders will be paid first.
Treasuries have proven always to be a reliable safe haven investment.
Recession fears have caused investors to flee to safe investments like Treasury bonds.
U.S. Treasury bonds are a pretty safe investment.
Before citizens, before services, before defence, bondholders get their money no matter what. During the 2008 financial crisis, governments bailed out banks while citizens lost homes. During COVID, governments printed trillions to buy bonds while small businesses collapsed. The priorities are clear: bondholders first, citizens second. Let's do the math on what you personally pay. Take your annual federal tax bill. Now multiply it by the percentage of the federal budget that goes to interest payments. In 2024, interest represented about 15% of federal spending. So 15% of your tax bill goes directly to interest. If you pay $20,000 in federal taxes, $3,000 goes to interest. If you pay $50,000, that's $7,500 to interest. Over a 40-year working career, the average American will pay over $300,000 in interest payments through their taxes. $300,000 of your lifetime earnings goes to wealthy bondholders. Not to services, not to infrastructure, to interest. That's a second mortgage you're paying. Except it's not on a house you own, it's on debt your government accumulated, often before you were born, to fund programs that may not have benefited you at all. Here's where it gets worse. As debt grows, interest payments grow. As interest payments grow, governments need to borrow more to cover those payments. As they borrow more, debt grows even faster. It's a death spiral. In 2000, US interest payments were $220 billion. In 2024, over $1 trillion. By 2030, projections show $1.4 trillion. By 2034, potentially $2 trillion. That's nearly 20% of all federal spending going to interest alone. More interest means less money for everything else. Education funding gets cut, infrastructure crumbles, social programs get slashed. But interest, that keeps growing because bondholders demand payment. And who benefits from this spiral? The wealthy who own the bonds. As interest payments increase, their returns increase. As governments desperately borrow more, they can charge higher interest rates. The crisis that's destroying government finances is a windfall for bondholders. Governments know this is unsustainable. They know they can never repay these debts. So what's the plan? Inflate away the debt, print money, devalue the currency. If your debt is $1 trillion and you inflate the currency by 50%, your debt is effectively $500 billion in real terms. But who gets hurt by inflation? Working people, people with fixed incomes, people holding cash. Your wages don't keep up with inflation. Your savings lose value. Everything gets more expensive while your income stagnates. Who benefits? People who own assets, real estate, stocks, and bonds, ironically. Because as inflation rises, so do interest rates, which means higher returns for bondholders. The solution to the debt crisis is designed to hurt you and benefit the wealthy. Again, there are alternatives. Governments could default on debt, cancel it, declare it odious, and refuse to pay. Many developing countries have done this, but wealthy countries won't, because their governments are run by the same class that owns the bonds. Politicians, central bankers, treasury officials, they come from Wall Street, go back to Wall Street, and protect Wall Street's interests. Bondholders will get paid, always, even if it means sacrificing everything else. You work 40, 50, 60 hours a week. You pay your taxes. You think you're funding civilization, roads, schools, defense, healthcare. But the truth is simpler and darker. Most of your tax dollars go to interest payments, to billionaires who own government bonds, to asset managers collecting fees, to foreign governments holding US debt. In 2024, interest payments exceeded defense spending across OECD countries. Your government spends more paying rich creditors than protecting you, more on interest than educating your children, more on bondholders than on healthcare. You're not funding a government, you're funding a wealth transfer system designed to move money from workers to the wealthy, and it's accelerating. Every year, interest payments grow. Every year, more of your taxes go to bondholders. Every year, less money remains for actual government services. This is the interest payment scam. You work, billionaires collect, and your government calls it fiscal responsibility. Here's your receipt, $7,700 annually, $300,000 over your lifetime. Straight from your pocket to billionaires' bank accounts. Welcome to modern economics.